This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So first off, thanks so much to Robin Vealey and Judy Crawford for attending this. I'm sure there are going to be some questions that we can't answer specific to CMPC certification, which is Robin's forte, and then BCIA certifications, which is Judy's forte. We will hopefully be on top of everything regarding mentorship. But of course, there are other requirements in the mix, and I'll give a brief overview of what those requirements are in a second. I encourage Robin and Judy to pipe in as they like. First off, so this is a dual certification program, and there's 3 tracks. I'll talk about that in a sec. This is being led by myself, Tim Herzog, along with Jessica Eure and Khazan, who you see up on the screen there as well. I guess it makes sense to do quick introductions real quick. My wife is texting me, that's not helpful. So my name's Tim Herzog. I'm in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm in private practice. I've been in private practice for 12 years now, and have long had a passion for performance, clinical work, and biofeedback, and really have always had an appreciation of how psychophysiology, I think, really blends quite well with sports psychology and optimal performance. I'll just leave my intro at that, I guess. Ina and Jessica, you guys want to dive in?
Sure. All right. My name is Ina Khazan. I am a clinical health and performance psychologist. I'm based in Boston. I have a private practice where I see people dealing with various, health and performance issues using biofeedback and mindfulness. I've been involved in, with BCIA and AAPB for a long time now. I also teach at Harvard Medical School, and I've been teaching the BCIA biofeedback certification workshop for a number of years, and I've been a mentor for BCIA for a long time as well. So I'm very excited about this dual certification program.
And Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Eure, and I'm board certified in neurofeedback and offer mentoring for other professionals. I've worked with about 11 different people to help them get their certification at this point. I'm located in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I've been in private practice for 11 years and involved in neurofeedback field for 14 years. I've been doing quantitative EEGs for the past 8 years and worked with Jay Gunkelman closely for about 6 years of that. And I really love teaching and mentoring. I think it's really fun and it stretches me, and I always learn things too. So I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, I think this is going to be awesome. This is something I've considered doing for a few years now, and I couldn't think of better partners to do this with. And similar to these guys, I've done a lot of mentoring over the years, and I really enjoy that at least as much as the rest of my practice. All right, and Rob, if you're able to turn your camera off, that'd be awesome. And then, if we have dialogue later, would certainly love to put a face to the name if people want to chat, or again, you can use the chat box. So again, we're talking about CMPC, Certified Mental Performance Consultant, through AASP, Association for Applied Sports Psychology, plus neurofeedback. That's one track. And in neurofeedback through Biofeedback Certification International Alliance, BCIA. Right, we're also talking about CMPC plus BCB, so board certification in biofeedback, and with that we're talking about general biofeedback. And then we're talking about CMPC plus HRV, so heart rate variability biofeedback. And so each of the 3 biofeedback certifications are through BCIA. Here is the crux of the certification criteria for CMPC. And Robin, please join in if you want to comment on anything, right? So you have to have coursework completed in each of the knowledge areas. And rather than me rattling them all off, you can see them on your screen. All of this is also available on the AASP website. You can see the link here. There's an exam and there's ethics. Follow the ethics code. The mentored experience is where we come in, right? So we're supplying, one piece of all of this, not the whole kit and caboodle, right? It's up to you, of course, to pursue your own coursework, etc. Likewise, it's up to you to find your clients, whether it's in your own practice or, maybe you're doing stuff pro bono. It's going to be important to have your liability insurance. We want you out doing work, and we'll mentor you through that experience. You need 400 hours of mentored experience, and a minimum of that is 200 hours spent in direct client contact. A maximum can be spent on 150 hours of support activity. So in other words, spending time, preparing a workshop, for instance, or documenting your notes. And then again, where we come in is the minimum of 50 hours spent in mentorship. With that, they're talking about face-to-face mentorship, and they're including, electronic mentorship and live video sessions. So the kind of thing that we're doing right here, right now, right? GoToMeeting, or what have you. And there's a minimum of 200 hours across these categories that must be spent with competitive sport populations, right? So if, for instance, if you're working with military, or if you're working with music or performing arts, you need to also make sure that 200 of those hours are actually with athletes. I see Robin nodding her head. Good, I didn't butcher anything. Okay, so now biofeedback BCIA certification. I pulled this from a chart that Judy supplied me with, and I'm sure all of you could obtain that from her as well. Prereq, you need to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited academic institution. And I think that's a minimum of a bachelor's. I made sure that, given that we're talking about licenses and licensure, right, because we're talking healthcare, I double checked with Judy this morning, and this is what she had to say, in line with what I thought was to be true. She said a master's in sports psychology will work. So in other words, if you're not on a licensure track, that's okay. If this person is only coaching, I think really we mean consulting as opposed to coaching a sport, and not treating a diagnosed disorder, there is no need for a license. Obviously, some sport folks will run into somebody who mentions their migraines. In that case, the unlicensed person should work with the MD who is in charge of the patient for this disorder, right? So you can do collaborative work with people who are licensed, but you need to make sure that you stay in your lane, right? And this mentorship is geared towards performance, and really only performance. Of course, we may end up dabbling into the gray area, but we want to use performance as our anchor. With BCIA, there's the didactic education requirement. Now, right now, we're looking at BCB, so the general biofeedback certification. So 42 hours from a regionally accredited academic institution or a BCIA accredited training program, and that's based on their blueprint. There has to be a human anatomy course, or physiology or human biology. Luckily, a lot of sports psych folks are already getting that kind of thing woven in, and luckily there should be a lot of crossover between the two sets of coursework. I certainly found that to be the case when I was applying way back when myself. And then mentoring, you know, for this certification, 20 contact hours are required, right? So now, continuing, right? So license, you need to be licensed. I already talked about all that though. If you're not doing clinical work, you don't need to be licensed. There's a written exam, you know, just like with AASP. So again, separate organizations, so they all have their own stuff. The certification lasts 4 years. Robin, I think it's 5 years for AASP, correct? Yep. And you have to, you know, keep up with CEs in between. Yeah, for BCIA, it's 48 hours. Robin, remind me what it is for AASP.
Oh, it's 70. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
75 CEUs in the 5-year period, but that's once we get to 2022, because right now it's prorated as we phase in the new certification program. Gotcha.
And there should be loads of overlap between the two organizations. You know, what will count. And then, you know, here's what's required in terms of hours, right? So ultimately you need 3,000 hours of patient or client time, we should say. And that happens over a minimum of 5 years. 2,000 hours for HRV, right? And Judy, am I mixing anything up here as I'm looking at certification by prior experience?
No, not so far. I think you have it pretty well laid out,
Okay. So now looking at differences between BCB and the other two certifications, right? Neurofeedback, the didactic education requirement is a little bit different. So what, as opposed to 48, no, what is it? As opposed to 42 hours, for neurofeedback, it's 36 hours. You know, again, a human anatomy course is required, but specifically neuroanatomy or physiological psychology. And then the mentoring hours are 25 as opposed to 20. And then if we look at the HRV certification, right, the prerequisites are the same as biofeedback or neurofeedback. And the didactic education component is 16 hours in HRV. And again, human anatomy is required. So I guess all of that really is the same.
Excuse me, Tim,
yeah.
Can I jump in there? The
Please.
didactic education for heart rate variability is a 16-hour blueprint that is specific to heart rate variability, plus one other didactic training course, one in biofeedback for 42 or neurofeedback for 36.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. That's why we have you on the call. All right. So again, right, the little differences between the three when it comes to mentoring, it's 20 hours of mentor hours for biofeedback, 25 for neurofeedback, 10 for HRV, right? And you can see on the screen, right, what's involved with mentorship, right? Initial case consultation, protocol selection, reviewing client progress, ongoing case management, proper use of protocols, reviewing past cases, instrumentation, and sensor placement skills.
Actually, if I can interrupt again,
Yep.
Our mentoring is built on a pattern where whether it's biofeedback, neurofeedback, or heart rate variability, each person is to have experience with their own personal training. So you're hooked up, you are the patient or the client to get the full client experience of biofeedback, neurofeedback, or HRV. Each one also has your patient-client work, the number of sessions you spend applying the clinical skills with a patient or a client. And then the other one, the third part, is case studies. So your mentor could give you a complete case from beginning, diagnoses, protocol selection, or not diagnoses, just interview the client and decide what's needed to be done, protocol selection, and protocol change, what happened, why we made the changes, and on through client discharge. So those are the three things: personal training, patient client sessions, and case studies. The case studies are there to expand your repertoire. If you only work with 6 clients, that's not near enough. So if you do extra case studies, you can learn more about, oh, well, this is how it worked with these other clients. So that's what we do. Now, inside of all that, we want you to learn all those and other things: initial case consultation, reviewing client progress, and things like that.
Perfect. Okay. So now I want to lay out the structure of CMPC plus BCB and then on with the others, right? So what do the hours look like? So there are 59 2-hour mentoring meetings for a total of 118 hours of mentoring, right? So this is beyond what you would do if you were just trying to check the boxes for the certification, right? But the way we figured it out, this is kind of what would need to happen to have the structure that we want, because we want to have groups. We want to have small groups of 3 where essentially we're taking turns with individual mentorship, you know, and group members will likely pipe in a little bit, but it will be predominantly, you know, mentor, mentee, taking turns. So that's how we knock out the individual mentorship, right? But then we can also spend some time as larger groups, and that's those larger group meetings. So I know for CMPC, Rob and I talked about this a while ago, a third of the meetings can be, or a third of those hours can be in a group format. And so we have some overlap there for BCIA, we're able to have case conferences. So we spent a long time with this, what felt like a giant GRE problem, figuring this out. And I think what we came up with is pretty solid. So, you know, there's 9 2-hour meetings with all 6 participants, right? So there will be simultaneously 2 3-person groups, and then they come together for their bigger group case conference meetings. With that, right, and part of the idea with this, right, is that, you know, there's added goodness by having a group of your peers. There's added goodness by having 2 mentors there as opposed to 1. And at the same time, we wanted to strive to have this be as affordable as it could be too, right? So that said, Ina will be present for 50 of those 118 hours, whereas I will be present for all of those 118 hours. And then we're checking all the boxes we need to for the 2 certifications. Okay. So this is a sample of what the calendar could look like, right? So, you know, week 1, it's me and Ina meeting with that first group of 3. Week 2, maybe it's just me. Week 3, it's both of us again. Now maybe in week 4, we've got our case conference. So now it's all 6 people are getting together with both mentors, right? Then the next week it's just me. The next week it's Ina and me. The week after just me. The week after just me. And then we're not superhuman, so we take Thanksgiving off. So now as we look at, well, what does CMPC plus BCM look like? Okay, very similar, but not exactly the same. So 50 2-hour individual meetings again. 9 of them are with the 6 participants, so that is the same. But then when it comes to having Jessica in the mix, she would be present for 65 of those 118 hours, whereas I would be present for all 118 again, right? So I envision with these groups, right, that obviously when we have Jessica or Ina present, it's going to be that much more biofeedback centric. But when it's just me, you know, yeah, we might have some focus on biofeedback, but it might be about anything and everything else to do with sports psychology also. And, you you know, given the fact that I've been in private practice a long time, I have found that a number of my mentees like sometimes diving into the nitty-gritty of, you know, marketing and how to market ethically and so on and so forth. And so here's a sample calendar of what the biofeedback certification in neurofeedback would look like, right? So very similar. You can see it's the small groups each week. Then we have a week where it's the case conference and so on. Okay. So now looking at CMPC plus HRV, heart rate variability, okay. Again, it's 59 2-hour meetings. Yeah, all of that looks the same. We have our small groups and our bigger groups. But this time, Ina is present for 26 of the 118 hours of total mentoring, and I'm there for all of it. So HRV ends up being a little bit more affordable than the other two groups. And here we can see that the sample calendar of what that might look like. Right, you see a whole lot more of just Tim solo. All right. So some FAQs, and I think I'll rattle through these, but do feel free to turn on your mic or jump in on the chat and ask questions. Because we want to make sure that all of this makes sense, and you might have related questions. Okay. So how does scheduling work? You know, that's always a challenge. However, you know, I've taught for Saybrook University for a number of years, and I always have a live component to what we do, a synchronous live component. And I found that through doing doodle polls and so on, we figure it out. So we do a doodle poll and figure out weekly times. Plus, we'd also have to figure out the group case conference times. And, you know, as it says here, the group, if it begins the first week of October, right? And we would want to start them as soon as we can, but we need 6 people per discipline in order to get the group rolling, right? So 6 people for biofeedback, 6 people for HRV, 6 people for neurofeedback, right? But assuming we're able to get started in October, you know, that it runs for 18 months, ending in March of 2020, then there's 79 weeks in that 18-month period in which we can schedule these 59 2-hour meetings, allowing for 20 weeks, you know, for religious or national holidays. And, you know, we do our best to meet everybody's needs on that front. Now, I didn't want to put too much into this bullet because I know this piece could be really confusing. So I want to say it orally, and if you have questions, speak up, right? So attendance is required, right? At the same time, there can be a little bit of wiggle room, and I really mean a little, not much, right? There can be a little bit of wiggle room in that, you know, you've got a wedding you got to go to or whatever it might be. You can do a swap with one of your group members to be worked out between you guys, right? Where, you know, maybe you're not there for a week because, well, and with that, somebody else is taking your time to receive that individual mentorship. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Because we are kind of taking turns for individual mentorship. So that's where there can be a little bit of wiggle room. The other place where there could be a little bit of wiggle room is the fact that case conferences can be recorded. And I think we're getting enough hours towards CMPC where there's not a conflict there either. It's, you know, it certainly works out for BCIA that I know that's legit because that's something BCIA does all the time. And I think we'll need to double check the math on that actually as I think about it to make sure that we're actually still checking all the boxes for CMPC. You might not be able to do a recording and meet all your requirements for CMPC. So what if I miss a meeting? Well, this program is definitely going to require commitment. You know, in large part for optimal group dynamics, it's important that you be there. You know, if you miss, then you can make it up with another mentor or pay for that time with one of us, right? So it's if you miss, then it's on you to somehow make it up. You know, and that's something that's frequently done. I mean, people might do 10 hours with one mentor and 10 hours with another mentor. So, you know, it wouldn't be unheard of for you to do something like that. But, you know, do realize that then you might need to invest a little bit more financially.
Hey, Tim, I have a question, if I may.
You bet.
I know this would be impossible with our group because there's no way that they could hold to that schedule. And I'm not saying that you should lower the bar at all, but I'm wondering, the way we're recording this meeting, let's say something came up in my office at the last minute and I just couldn't attend. If you sent me a link to this recording, I would get a lot out of it. So I'm wondering, could there be a way to record those meetings? We don't want to make it so that everybody says, I got a bad manicure last week, I can't make it. We want to, you know, I applaud you for keeping your standards, but I wonder if there's a way we could record the meeting. The bigger thing is, how do you make sure that they watched it, participated, and learned? So for our webinars, for example, you have to complete an evaluation and an exam. You can't move on to question 2 till you complete question 1, and on and on. All that really does is slows you down. If somebody wants to cheat, they're going to cheat. But I was wondering if we could think of a way to participate with the recording and have some other measurement to ensure somebody participated.
So I knew that we could do that for case conferences for BCIA, Judy. It sounds like we're able to do it for any of it for you guys. And so I'm open to that. I assume that Jessica and Ina are. I mean, I think, you know, again, we want to limit how often that happens to optimize group dynamics. I'm wondering, Robin, though, from AASP's end, does that work?
Yeah, you know, I was looking here as you're talking, and, you know, Jack Lesick is more of our mentorship guru, if you will. But yeah, so there's the face-to-face and electronic. So you need a minimum of 40 hours face-to-face or electronic. A minimum of 30 of those must be face-to-face. Remaining 10 can be face-to-face or electronic. So Tim, the last thing you said kind of suggested that, so you're talking about you're watching a recording, but didn't you say something like somebody might be with you there? Like, would you or someone else be kind of with them, or they just watch it kind of cold on their own? Does my question make sense?
It does make sense. I think the idea is that they would watch it on their own. And to Judy's point, you know, I think she's suggesting, well, you know, maybe they could write up notes or something summarizing it, or somehow engage with it, you know, so they aren't just going through the motions of it.
Prove engagement. Yeah.
Yes.
Could there be little exams developed? That'd be an awful lot of work for you people. But if Ina had presented, she could ask the person who missed it questions, and it would be clear to Ina within the first 5 seconds, you didn't even open this. So well, I'm just wondering,
that's the dynamic we're shooting for. We want it to be more of a legal kind of
absolutely.
Anyways, you know, so we're not looking for accountability so much, but I wonder, you know, if somebody can, you know, something I often did with my students at Saybrook, for instance, is they could provide me, if they honestly couldn't make it that night, they could provide me with a written summary of what we covered that night.
Yeah, because, you know, it's different than electronic mentorship where it's like telephone, email, or texting. I mean, this is different. So you're using the recording and then they're doing something. So, you know, yeah, I mean, as careful and as thoughtful as you are being, you know, I think we could live with that.
Okay, Good to know. Awesome.
I just don't want to build a barrier that's going to shoot us in the foot before we're out of the gate. A lot of people have said to me, why don't you raise your requirements? Are you insane? Have you met the American public? They want to do the least they can do. And so, and it's not that, oh, we're going to lower our requirements so we can certify 50 billion people. No, 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 no. What good is a certification if you certified 3 people last year? And anyone who's worked with, like you, Tim, working at Saybrook, you know that can happen. So I guess our struggle at BCIA is always, how do we meet in the middle? How do we make it legitimate and worthwhile without making it that people will just walk away? Because certifications, as you all know, is voluntary, not mandatory. If it was mandatory, if a state licensing board said you must, or the VA said you must, oh, I'd raise those requirements by this afternoon. I'd cancel the upcoming webinar so I could raise those standards, but we can't. You know what I mean? So it's just that fun. It's a funny dance to try to get that sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to make this achievable, and we will certainly work with you. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and meeting all the requirements, and that you know we're not doing anything that feels sketchy. So
well, you
it
probably,
sounds like we're all on the same page. So
probably if you're working with somebody in this group over and over, you're going to get an idea pretty quick who's not committed. It's going to show up because everyone can stub their toe. Everyone can have a bathroom flood or a car that didn't start or whatever excuse you have, or a sick parent, whatever. So you want to have a little bit of humanity to this, but you also want to keep an eye on it because you want to weed those people out who, you're not in this, you are not doing what you need to do. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. I see, Jessica, that you just had a back and forth. Can you maybe say some of that aloud for us?
Sure. So I was just asked, or we were asked, first off, about people who may already have some of their mentoring hours under their belt for one or the other of the programs. And because we are really wanting to have a group that is learning from each other throughout the whole course of the program, there isn't a way to kind of jump in and out of the group. We really want people to commit for the whole time. And again, this goes back to our idea that we're doing this not just to get the minimum, but to really come out of this feeling really confident and proficient in what you're doing. So even though you may be going definitely above and beyond what you're needing for your hours, the quality of what you're going to get out of it and apply that to your practice is going to be worth the money, in my opinion, by far. The other question was about just clarifying how BCIA is approving this for individual mentoring, which can be a little bit confusing because when you look at it on the surface, it looks like we're always meeting as groups. But what we're doing is those 59 2-hour meetings with the triad, they are basically split into one-on-one mentoring sessions that are being observed by the other 2 mentees in those video meetings. So those sessions do qualify for individual mentoring hours. And then there are also the meetings we have with 6 people present where that will be the group hour. So there's only 9 of those meetings because there's a lot fewer approved hours that are group.
And I think recognizing that, you know, there are certainly going to be times that group members have at least as much to offer as we do. We're not going to be like, nope, zip it, you know. But I think primarily it's going to be mentor-mentee during those sessions. And in fact, you know, I was going to acknowledge in all of this too that I feel like one of my strengths, you know, both as a therapist and as a consultant and as a mentor is I try to be humble enough to know that I do not have all the answers, but I'm really good, I think, at asking the right questions and facilitating good dialogue. So.
And I would add to that sometimes, even though it's one person's case that's being discussed with a mentor, the other two people that are observing are, well, certainly not only learning from that, but they, their contributions are valuable
Yes,
as well.
very much.
Right? So I think there is something, to be said for that group learning environment that's, otherwise really hard to get.
Yeah, I think that's a real advantage of this. I mean, we're hoping that we get a bunch of really high caliber people so that really everybody's feeding off each other and not just off us as mentors. Okay, so I think Jessica kind of already touched on this, right? I already have one certification. Can I just do the other? Well, no, it's kind of an all or nothing deal. I mean, you at least need to be in attendance for everything. And beyond that, it's up to you, right? But still, there's great professional development to be had, even if you already have a given certification. One question I've heard from a few people is, I want to pursue one track, but I'm interested in the others. Can I do more than one? No, I mean, I suppose theoretically you could sign up for multiple groups, but that seems expensive and like a lot of work also. But what we are open to is having you attend the other case conferences, right? So if you're in the neurofeedback group, but you're really interested in HRV, we'll go ahead and attend the HRV case conferences. And we'll let it be known when they are. And you might do that just for the sake of professional development, learning, or you could log those hours also as you later maybe work towards that additional certification. Another question that's popped up: are APA CEUs available? And special thanks to Len Zykowski here, who is a former president of AASP and who certainly has contributed in the world of biofeedback as well. He is co-sponsoring APA CEUs. So you can get 40 credits across a 2-year span. And the way we were talking about it, it sounds like we could count 4 ethics credits per year within that. So he's making it pretty affordable too, which is awesome. So that would be in addition, but it's a very small in addition. Okay. So what equipment do I need? This is very much up to the individual. Each of the 3 of us has experience with different kinds of equipment. If you look at my desk, there's all kinds of wires everywhere. That said, we're wanting you to, at least gain some minimal proficiency before getting rolling by doing an introductory course. Getting your own equipment. You're welcome to pick our brains on what might be a good fit for you. Really a lot's going to boil down to what do you want to do with it and what's your budget. So
may I add something just about the equipment?
Yes.
So it is entirely up to you which equipment to choose, and the mentoring is not about the equipment, right? So I just want to make it clear that it's not, we're not coming into, well, tell me how to do this using this particular set of sensors. It's really, this is the client that I have in front of me, how do I do biofeedback with them, and whatever technical issues there may be arising, those are questions for the manufacturer of your equipment, or maybe just a separate conversation with your mentor if they happen to know that brand of equipment, but it's not during the time of the mentoring sessions, because those are really just about, how do you treat this person, not what do you do with the equipment.
Yeah, it's not going to be equipment or software centric at all. Prereqs. I mentioned, we'd like people to do an introductory course first. Ina and I are going to be organizing one early fall for HRV. And there's a possibility we could offer general biofeedback. Ina's taught the course many times before. but I guess this would be a first if we were to do it virtually.
So that's an if. We still need to figure out, you know, whether and how that could happen. But
Yeah.
if there is enough interest, we could try to make it happen.
Let's see. So payment options. Full tuition up front once a group is launching would be one option. Or you could, you know, well, and I suppose no matter what, you could pay with a check. I think that would be our preference. Or you could use a credit card, and with that, we would want to collect a 4% convenience fee so that we don't get dinged by the credit card company. Or, you know, if people want to spread it out, because we do realize that it's a significant tuition, folks are welcome to pay quarterly, and with that, though, there would be a 5% convenience fee. So, this chart here outlines, you know, what pursuing one certification or the other on its own might look like, and then what it looks like with our dual mentorship program. And this chart is also on the website too, if you want to go back and look at it. You know, and as I said before, I was recording the session if you wanted to take a look back at any of this. Let us know if there's any questions on any of this. I don't know, Jessica or Ina, if there's anything you want to highlight while I have the screen up.
Just that I think we're crazy people.
I think that's a given.
Yeah, I mean, I think to their point, right? I think we're just super passionate about both these fields, right? Both the field of sports psychology and the fields of biofeedback and the subdisciplines. We love it, and we love seeing other people getting excited about it. And you know, I've been giving continuing education workshops for years at AASP or AAPB and other places as well. And people are always like, well, how do I take the next leap? And I often don't have a really good answer for them. And so this is the best answer that I could come up with, and it's kind of been brewing for a few years. So I'm really excited to do this. And I think we're making this pretty darn affordable for what it is. I think it's going to be a really cool experience. So
We do have some
questions?
questions coming in on chat that we could go over.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you go ahead and read them aloud, Jessica?
Sure, yeah. One was asking about, again, if you attend the group case presentations for one of the tracks that you're not in, do you get to count those hours towards the other certification mentoring requirements? And as long as you do the right paperwork, yes.
Yep.
So, and again, just to re-emphasize, you do have to sign up completely for one track. You can attend the group conferences from one of the other tracks, but you can't just be like, I just want to do CMPC and the 9 hours of case presentations for whatever. So you have to commit to one of the 3 tracks fully. And then other question was about wanting to learn which equipment each mentor is most familiar with and uses most often. And we definitely don't want to be biased towards any particular kind of equipment. But that said, I think we'll all be very transparent about what equipment we are familiar with and have used in the past. So that can definitely be a conversation that can be had.
Yep.
Excuse me, this is Judy again. Speaking of equipment, we sure get an awful lot of conversation about, there's an awful lot of pieces right now that are plug and play. I don't need to learn anything. I plug it in and some black box does an algorithm. So while we don't want to limit the equipment, which one? I think we might want to think about standards, because people are calling me with some of the, I've never heard of them, and they're really populating. I mean, with every ISNR APB meeting, there seems to be lots and lots of new vendors.
Yeah.
I'm not a technical person. We all know this. I run the business of biofeedback certification. That's it. But from one of my from my good friends, what they believe is some of this stuff doesn't do anything. You could swing
I
a
agree.
bar. Yeah. So I think
agree.
we might want to have some sort of a.
I think that rather than saying this particular brand is bad and this is good, I think educating people on being savvy consumers and knowing what specifications to look for in the equipment, what kind of software and hardware components you're wanting, to the quality and the output that you're getting and the data that you can access and how you can manipulate that data to use clinically or with other populations is what's important. So I think having it more of a discussion about that than particular brands would be how we would go about that.
That's perfect, Jessica. I couldn't have said it better. I think that's wonderful. But recently, Linda Walker, I don't know if you know her, she's amazing. She did a COVID webinar for us about how to do teletherapy during COVID. She was bombarded. I felt so sorry for her. She kept trying to say, I don't sell equipment. I don't sell equipment. I don't want to answer that question. And what it came down to for me, as I thought that they don't want to read and do the homework. Just tell me what to buy. Tell me what kind of car to buy. It was pretty sad. And she kept saying, look, I don't get paid for any, paid a fee to promote this, that, or something else. And I thought was amazing how she kept saying, nope, I can tell you what to look for. I can tell you what to look for. Even after the webinar was over, I was getting emails. I want to know, can't you give me a couple of brands? So I wonder if there should be a webinar early on before people jump in to teach them some of that. And Ina can confirm, we kind of ran into that with HRV because there's a couple of very popular HRV pieces that don't measure everything we want you to learn about. We want to teach you all these different measurements. If you choose to buy something that only uses 3, that's you. You can do that. But I think our goal, common goal with sports psychology and with biofeedback is we want to teach people as much as they need to know, and then they get to choose, if that makes sense.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, maybe something to actually for us to address is put together a set of requirements that people should be looking for in their brand of equipment.
Yep. All right. Other questions? So, I'm hoping that a number of you walk away from this and follow up with us and say, yeah, count me in. I'm also hopeful too, though, that you go recruit your friends and colleagues because, like I said before, we need 6 people per discipline to make that group run, the way we formulated this.
I saw a question in the thing about, is BCIA approving group mentoring or a limited number of group mentoring sessions is acceptable towards the 25 hours? This is a really important question. If it's okay, I'd like to answer that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, BCIA, and I think y'all touched on it earlier, but if Jessica is reviewing Mary's case contact that her one client did, that client's learning a lot. That person can use it towards their patient-client contact time. The other people learn by listening, but there's no box to put that in. Because as I said, there's 3 boxes for your mentoring, either personal biofeedback, you're hooked up as a patient, your patient-client sessions where you're running the sessions, or case studies. It's not a case study if all Jessica's doing is reviewing and discussing 2 sessions they did last week with one person. So it's not the number of hours, it's just we only approve case studies. That's the only thing that we can carte blanche that you can do in a group, because everybody can sit and learn. If Ina or anybody is presenting a case that she did that was so interesting, everyone can learn. So I think that's kind of an important thing, and we will run into this because people are always looking to, I understand that, they're looking to spend less time and less money. Now, Ina knows this too, probably you do too, Jess, but if you were working in a live group and you had 4 people, you 2 pretend to be the clinicians, you 2 pretend to be the patient. You can do role playing, that way you can do group mentoring. but I don't know that this would be set up for that. So we just kind of need to pay attention to that a little bit. Thank you.
I see in the chat, Rebecca asks, would you be willing to do a group of 6 people who only need the sports psych track? Yeah, I mean, we could certainly talk about the options. You know, I think similarly, you know, I guess folks could do an only neurofeedback track with Jessica, or only an HRV or BCB track with Ina. You know, so I think there could be other options. You know, so I guess feel free to reach out, but I think the way we're envisioning it right now, because dual certification is such a, I think, a coveted way to go. A lot of people have expressed interest in it. I think that's the route that we're excited to deliver, and you know, but we're open to other ideas.
Eric wanted to clarify his question.
Yeah, Eric, do you want to turn your mic on? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Yeah, so I was the one that asked the question about equipment. Yeah, I asked that mainly not in terms of purchasing equipment, learning equipment. It's just, I'm sure that everyone here knows that neurofeedback and biofeedback and HRV are like pretty general terms that encompass like a lot of different measuring tools. So I wanted to know what each of the mentors was most familiar with or uses most often, so to see if that kind of aligns where like some of our interests may be, and where it like hopefully that they like sync up. So whether it's like EEG or EMG or things like that, like those are very different tools, but both fall under the same umbrella. If that makes sense.
So EEG would be the neurofeedback track, and EMG would be the general biofeedback track. You know, HRV could be on the general or on the HRV track. Am I answering your question, or am I missing it?
It sounds like Eric is asking, what are we exactly familiar with, right? Are you asking about the specific brands, or?
Not the specific brands, but like do you do more work in, like, say in the neurofeedback track, do you do a lot of work in EEG, or do you use some other form to do your practice? Or if you're in the biofeedback track, do you use EMG, or do you use another form of measuring device in your practice?
Gotcha.
Okay, good question.
Yeah.
Should we go through that, or?
Sure. So, you know, if it's EEG neurofeedback, that is going to be Jessica's neurofeedback track. You know, if it's peripheral biofeedback, you know, then we're talking about all modalities biofeedback, right? So we're talking EMG, we're talking skin temperature, sweat,
breathing, heart rate variability. Yeah, and both Tim and I are, work with all of those.
Yeah. So I'm already BCB certified. I need to finish up paperwork and stuff for HRV. And actually, under Jessica's tutelage, I have, started making little strides towards my own neurofeedback.
I think another thing to consider is hopefully any mentor worth their salt should have some proficiency across the board. In terms of neurofeedback, understanding the different approaches to neurofeedback and the different kind of theoretical and applied techniques and different types of perspectives on that. I think if you have a good mentor, they should be able to speak fairly competently and knowledgeably across the board about those things. So.
Yeah. I see one question from Marla up here. This is super cool. Tim and Jessica, thanks. I will be doing this for the BCB training and certification. Like I told Tim, this is a tough time for this because I'm not doing in-person sessions with clients and I'm worried I won't get the cases in. I wonder if others are in the same boat and what to do about this. I don't want to do just at-home training because I need to get proficient with the thought tech system. Yeah, so I mean, I think during this time, we're likely going to do a lot of remote work. I think to the extent that you can do it with friends or family, great. You know, I'm sure there will be times where we're talking about best practices for when you are doing it with, you know, clients outside of your family. You know, what steps folks are taking. I'm in my practice currently, I'm still seeing everybody virtually. And I know Jessica's starting to see people in person again. Ina, are you seeing people in person again yet?
Starting to in September.
Yeah, yeah. I've toyed with the idea specifically for biofeedback only. Everybody else, I'm inclined to keep doing telehealth. So, you know, I think that's going to be a struggle that all of us are dealing with, and you know, in terms of getting your client hours in, I think we could help you brainstorm on how to be creative and best practices. And I think that's probably the best we can all do, you know. Other questions? All right. Well, maybe we should call it a day with that. And again, encourage people to reach out. There's our emails up on the screen. Oh, it looks like there's one more question that just came through. To clarify, this is performance enhancement focus, not mental health, i.e. pain and concussions, correct? Yep. So it's going to be all about optimizing performance. All right, folks. Well, again, we're super excited. Reach out and let's do this. All right.
Thank you all for your interest. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
And thanks so much, Judy and Robin, for being on the call again.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.